The devastated family of Dylan Rounds continues to play an agonizing waiting game in the desperate search for answers. Just a few days ago, I spoke with Dylan's mom about what's been happening in the case. I was making a drive out to the area where he disappeared to gather some drone footage off of Dylan's ranch and the location where he was believed to be murdered. Well, thanks everybody, and welcome to Profiling Evil. We're going to be digging into the Dylan Rounds case again today. It's been a while and not many people are talking about things. Thanks for your support of Profiling Evil, and please make sure you're hitting that like and subscribe button, ringing the bell, and letting your friends know about Profiling Evil. We appreciate all that you do for us. So here's the deal. Dylan Rounds' mother, Candice Cooley, is confident that the answers to where her son's body is located is tucked away in the brain of James Brenner, but his lips are sealed. If you remember, Dylan disappeared at age 19, farming out in the Lucin area, out in western Utah desert. He disappeared on May 28th, 2022. And there has been so much frustration in this case, especially given the fact that Brenner's been arrested, but he still hasn't had a preliminary hearing. A trial date still has not been confirmed. But most importantly, Dylan's body hasn't been recovered. I thought I'd make a drive out to Dylan's farm just to capture some drone footage of the area, to show you what an incredibly large challenge it is to find a body while out there. On the drive, I called Candice and chatted with her a little bit. First, to get permission to go out onto Dylan's farm and to just find out if there was anything in particular she needed me to capture. We also had a special little mission that I'll talk about a little later. Well, she gave me permission to get onto Dylan's property, and I wanted to not only get out there and refresh my memory, but also capture some video for the Dr. Phil show, because Candice is going to be going on it and talking with him about the case in just a few weeks. So for those of you who haven't been in this part of the United States, again, out in western Utah, it is incredibly vast. Half of my trip was spent on the interstate until I took the turnoff in the northwest corner of Utah and started heading south. From there, it was about an hour plus of a 2-lane highway, but it really feels like you're on a one-way highway because you never seem to pass anybody out there. It is remote. But once I reached the Lucin turn, I headed east into the backcountry, and I guess backcountry is a term I use. It is just flat desert and nothing but dirt roads. In fact, it's all dirt roads, and some of those roads are really difficult driving. You can kind of see the area as I'm driving along here, and also it might give you an impression of how vast this area is. Well, hey everybody, I'm driving across the remote Utah desert in western Utah, driving out to Dylan Rounds' old piece of property, the place where he was murdered by James Brenner, allegedly. Now, Brenner sits in a jail right now in Box Elder County, Utah, awaiting trial, awaiting a preliminary hearing at this point. I called up Candice, Dylan's mom, this morning and asked her if I could have permission to go out, shoot a little video around the place to kind of show you how much things have changed. I also like coming out into the desert during this time of year because usually the foliage is down a lot. There are no leaves out on the sagebrush. Everything's a little browner and you can see the ground a little more easily. I wanted to come out and show you once again how absolutely remote this area is, how difficult it would be to find a body, and how easy it would be to hide a body. So, especially given the fact that there are a plethora of mines out in this area, there are river washes and steep canals and steep embankments places where you could easily hide a body. And now 2 years later, that body would be decomposed, and finding it would be next to impossible, if not, as it's proven, impossible thus far. I do believe at some point somebody on an ATV is going to come across Dylan's body. Their dog's going to be out running, and they're going to come back with a bone. Somehow this young man will finally get his resting place. And I just feel so badly for his parents and family members who continue to look and hope for him. I came out because I thought, we haven't heard much about Dylan's case for a long time, and I'm going to retrace the case and kind of bring you up to date on where we are now. But James Brenner sits in a Box Elder County jail awaiting a preliminary hearing. He hasn't even had a preliminary hearing yet. I'm going to be talking to Candice a little later, and you'll be getting her comments about what's going on. She's not going to tell us what's happening on the inside scoop, but she is going to kind of tell us what she knows to date, the kinds of things that have been going on, and what her foundation that she set up for Dylan is doing to help bring other kids home. And she's done some marvelous things. I got to briefly see her at CrimeCon last year, and I'm looking forward to that discussion. Now, it's really important to also recognize that this area is all fenced off with no trespassing signs. So I got permission to go in because I don't want the sheriff picking me up either. I used to come across from the Wasatch front side across the train track bed. And I'm going to show you some video here of a train coming and rumbling through the area. I've had to catch on my drone, and you'll be able to kind of see these big, massive, long trains heading west from the Wasatch Front across the Great Salt Lake through what's known as the Lucin Cutoff, or the Lucin Cutoff, and I've used both terms my whole life up here. But the area where Dylan Rounds decided to dry farm, and then after we go to Dylan's place and look at the condition of things today, then we're going to go out to the grain sheds. Now it's pretty dang muddy, and again, it's winter. If you look, as we look at video, you'll see snow in the mountains. This is closer to Great Salt Lake level, which is much lower than obviously our mountaintops here, and you'll be able to see more of the countryside, including some of these amazing washes that I'm talking about. I'm going to just pop this one up here just so you can see as I'm driving across it. This is one of the washes, and imagine these things go for miles and miles and miles. Imagine how easy it would be to dispose of a body inside of those, and then allow predators and others to slowly take all the parts away. And as that water comes and continues to slough away the sides of the walls of those riverbanks when they run, it's going to bury the bones. So finding this young man is going to be really difficult, if not impossible. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to go out, we're going to fly Dylan's ranch, and we're going to look over his farm. We're going to look at the equipment that's there today. I think you'll be amazed at how little has changed. And then we're going to go down to the grain sheds and look at those. And then I guess while we're driving around, I might take you on a little tour to a couple of my favorite places. One is this crazy art sculpture that was put up out here that is lined up perfectly with the 4 solstices. So we just had winter solstice in December 21st. And through those tubes that you're going to be looking at here on the screen here, you're going to be able to see the sun at the perfect moment of each solstice. Kind of a cool little decoration out in the middle of nowhere. And then if I have enough time, I'm going to stop by one of the places that we used to go with when I was on the SWAT team, and we would just stop to pay respects. And it's a little tiny cemetery in a place called Kelton. And in that cemetery, you'll see some really old tombstones, especially from migrant workers that came in to work on the Transcontinental Railroad as it was being run. Just to the east of where I am right now is where the Golden Spike was driven. So if you've paid attention to any of that history and you know where the Golden Spike was, you're right in the right area. It is a remote place, but I just love getting out here. So thanks for joining me on the trip, and we'll go look at some things. You know, it was still really muddy out there. Utah's winter hadn't come to an end yet. In fact, it's long from being over. But I hope that you're going to enjoy this profiling evil theme as I pull into Dylan's property and fly the drone around to give you a little idea of what was going on. Now, things are much different now because Dylan's fields, you can't see the marks anymore of where he was plowing. You can't see the water pond that he had. You can't see the equipment that was stacked up that was in good condition. What you see now are the remnants of what's been left behind. Now, with Dylan's property kind of behind us and in our minds, I want to take you over to where Brenner was staying. This 59-year-old James Brenner is the only suspect in the case, and he still remains in jail, charged with aggravated murder and desecration of a body, or abuse and desecration of a human body. He's got some federal weapons charges against him, but I'm really wondering if those things are going to stick. Frankly, I think they're going to be dropped, but I don't know why I feel that way, other than just being comfortable with the criminal justice system and what's been going on and the movement that I've seen. Frankly, not much has happened on those things, but he remains in federal custody, which means every time he goes out, they have to go through a bunch of paperwork to get him to go to a state court hearing, like a murder charge. Now, Brennan was squatting on a piece of property owned by another guy, and this is most likely the location where the murder occurred. As I show some video in a minute, you're going to see the shed and equipment, including you're going to see the place where Brenner was living. So with permission, I went out onto the property and went around and kind of got a sense of what things are like today as compared to my memory of looking from quite a distance as search warrants were being served back when the murder occurred. I'm going to share some of that aerial imagery in a few moments, but first I wanted to share with you a video that I took inside of the motorhome that Brenner was squatting inside of. And while I'm in there, I'm going to share some things that I discovered, things that without question place James Brenner in that motorhome. Not much has changed, still food on the shelves. I imagine law enforcement carefully went through this thing, but it makes me wonder how, or all of this is an artifact of people coming after the fact. This place is a disaster. That's the van that Brenner was in. Now, if you think of the area, it was just a few feet away from Brenner's motorhome that Dylan's boots were found, out up next to that dirt mound, if you remember the imagery. At first, police ignored those boots, but family members kept complaining and stating that they believed the boots were Dylan's. I mean, they've seen him in them. They know that they were Dylan's boots. And they also indicated that Dylan would never have tossed them there. Now, I don't necessarily blame police for, in the first few hours of this case, thinking it's just another missing persons case. But when things started coming together, it seemed like maybe they could have moved toward suspicious or even homicide a lot quicker. I don't know. It's a little bit of Monday morning quarterbacking that I apologize for. But most importantly, those boots, there were stains on them that appeared to be blood. The family continued to push and finally forced some examination, and it was proven that the boots had Dylan's blood on those. Now, I'm going from memory, so I hope I've got that right. But let's take a moment now while I'm showing some of the video of the area and listen to a conversation that I had with Candice later that night when I returned from flying out there. Now, again, I'm going to be playing the interview and showing you some of the area, the shed, and other areas to give you an idea of just how incredibly vast this is and how difficult it would be to find a body out there, even in the best of circumstances. So let's watch this interview. Hey, everybody, it's Mike from Profiling Evil. I'm here with Candice Cooley, the mother of Dylan Rounds. And Candice, it is so good to see you again. How have you been doing?
Good. Focused on a lot of other things going on, trying to stay busy while we wait. Yeah. Well, so we cannot change what happened to Dylan. It couldn't have been prevented. He came across an evil man that none of us knew was evil and frankly didn't even know. So there was no preventing it and there's no changing it, right? We know that James Brenner murdered Dylan. But we know the fight that we had getting help with law enforcement telling us, oh, he just went out partying for Memorial Weekend. He just did this. It really took us, 2.5 to 3 weeks to get the case going, and everything we told them was correct. So we're taking the stand of how many other parents are in that fight that just crumble in the corner and don't know what to do, don't know where to go. There was a lot of speculation, a lot of craziness, a lot of insane things that went on once the bad YouTube creators got involved in Dylan's case. It just got wild. And me personally, I still deal with it daily. I still deal with the backlash to help other families not to have to go through that, to learn basically the do's and don'ts. Like, law enforcement's not always going to step up and believe what you have to say, especially about your adult child. But you keep fighting, and here's the people you go to, and here's the people you don't. Here's how you get awareness without the craziness. Here's what we can change, different laws. I don't think law enforcement agencies should be able to reject help from other law enforcement agencies. I think that is something that needs to be changed on a federal level. If you got other agencies coming in saying, hey, here's our resources, they should use them. They should have to use them. Like, if it was their child, they would. So why won't they when it's one of our children? There's really, so much that needs to change.
Those are really important points. And I know especially across our nation with the sheriffs across the country where they're voted in, they sometimes feel as though they're an island themselves. Not many sheriffs have I experienced in my career, which was pretty extensive, refused help when it came. And to hear those kinds of stories is always frustrating. I think another thing that really came out in just the little comments that you made right there was number one, there's a place and a time for the true crime community. What I do, what Ron does, what others do. And there are a batch of people who just exploit heartache and exploit families like you who are just trying to get your message out, but not realizing you're being exploited.
Well, and a lot of people don't know, and it'll come out more as the awareness comes out. We had people sitting across our driveway to get a picture of me on our own property that they were getting paid $100 for. I mean, we literally hit on our own property for over a year. Our property has little privacy fences all over now, so that when we have friends over or we have a place to sit, that we don't have to worry about that. It's crazy. And all because our son was murdered? What does that have to do with wanting a picture of the mother? It just blows our mind. And that's, like I said, that's part of the do's and don'ts. There's definitely a huge part of YouTube that is great for the crime community and the true crime and getting awareness. It just seems we had every bad one reach out. And that was part of Justin and I putting out the $20,000 reward on our own Facebook page. And that's a message I would love parents to take to heart. Do not put this on your own personal page. Do not put your own personal information out there. You go, to places like Missing American Network and other ones, and you let them moderate it and you let them take care of it, because it caused a lot of issues in Dylan's case. It cost us a lot of time. It burned a lot of resources. It was horrible. So there are those people you can go to for awareness. YouTube and Facebook both. And 90% of the time, they will not headhunt you. You will find them and ask for their help. You will get the good ones that reach out to you, not the, they'll reach out to you later on, not the ones that are like, I'll find your son in 5 minutes, or I can tell you everything about your son you didn't know. And they're halfway across the country. And then there's the cases like Dylan's that it's like, no, he absolutely, he was 17 years old when he started farming that. He was finally getting his first crop. And you're telling me he's going to walk away now? Like, the hard work's done. He got his pivot up. He got the ground broke. He got everything set up. And then he plants his crop. And after that, you're going to tell me, well, I planted my crop, I'm going to walk away. So, there's definitely some different things to look at in different cases, because I'll be honest with you, I'm working between 10 and 15 right now with other families, and there's a lot of these parents that they'll give me the full story, and it breaks my heart, but I have to tell them I have no assistance for you. Like, I had my 22-year-old and I got in a fight, and he said, I don't ever want to see you again, and it's been 3 weeks and I haven't seen him. I'm like, there's nothing I have to offer. We're focusing on the ones where it's out of character. There's a lot in Montana, a lot in California right now that we're working on that. It's like, no, this is out of the ordinary. I can say in all of those cases, the police departments are awesome. They have agreed. They are having us assist them. They're doing whatever they can. I haven't ran into a case yet that's like Dylan's.
When you say it is remote, I'm putting on the map for everybody to get a sense of this. I live here along the Wasatch Front, and this was my drive yesterday to go out and check out Dylan's farm, a couple of other key places, and make my way back. And folks, again, to put it in perspective, the Great Salt Lake, I think, is about 300,000 square acres of water. And for those looking in the United States, maybe this makes it even a little easier to understand how, let's see if I can get just to Utah, the size of this inside the boundary of the state of Utah is just a massive amount of ground.
I think you got them mapped right on here. I just think you got them confused yesterday. See, you see his pivot. So you see that circle on where you got where it's Dylan's farm? That's his pivot. That's a pivot circle.
Yeah. Okay. And so,
just like you'd see anywhere else.
So, this is, I'm going to just zoom forward a little bit.
That's the shed property.
Yeah. So give everybody kind of a look at this.
Yep.
And
so let me tell you a little bit about this. So this property, half of the vehicles, half of the stuff was on it. Not the backhoe, but there was a lot. There's been some cleaned up, but there's a lot of stuff that was on it because, I don't know if you noticed the boat yesterday. There's just a boat out.
Yes. Yeah, to the east of the property.
So it's just one of those things where, like, over the years of people have bought and resold it, they just leave stuff. And that motorhome you sent me the picture of that you can see here is the same thing. It was just there. And Brenner did squat in that for a little bit. And then the fifth wheel that the lab took, Dylan actually bought that for Brenner. But the motorhome he was squatting in when Don Hately first brought him over.
Okay.
But you see all those trenches. So that's all was going to be for water and sewer lines. And then, like, on this backside, if you would have walked it, you would have seen there's water hydrants everywhere. People used to live out there to farm it. It's piped for water. So that's when I say, when people say, oh, it's never been farmed, or it was impossible. How could he do this? That was all set up as a huge farm. That's where all the workers stayed. There's hydrants everywhere.
Actually,
they were getting ready to run.
Yeah, those water valves run all along this ditch, all the way to the north.
And it used to be full of campers, Mike. It used to be full of people there, living there, working it. So the big round, that's the fuel tank. And then over where you see more of the alkali that you just went away from, that's where the pond is. And then you've got his fertilizer truck. So we pretty much left everything out there. We don't know what we're going to do at the farm right now. We don't want to do anything until we find Dylan, right? Because you just never know when the little tiniest thing could be found. So that's, we've left his roller harrows, what you're looking at. We did drain the fuel out of the fuel tank. And just so everybody's clear, the fuel tank was 100% checked. We've been asked that 1,000 times and still get asked because it's a big fuel tank. It's been thoroughly done. So yeah, this was just kind of on the corner, and this is where his yard was going to be. And then after his first crop, he would have enough money to buy the second pivot and then get 2 crops. So yeah, from looking at it at the air, and I think I got some drone footage. Well, I know I flew it once. I'd have to send you, where you've got the picture of flying over. You can see Dylan's pivot, and it was long enough that his all of his triticale was sprouting, and you could see the crop, and it was all nice and green. So yeah, it looks bad, but it's not, and that's why it's been farmed so many times.
But again, this will give a pretty good indication of the area we're talking about. And I believe when we pan back at some point here, we can see that boat that Candice was speaking about. Maybe not. We'll just give this. This also gives us a good feel for how massive this environment is out here. I'll just share. This is also one of the places I like to often stop when I'm out there. Is this old solstice sculpture that was put up, and just explaining that as the different solstices, like winter solstice on December 21st, we just had came. You can go and look through these pipes and see the sun rising and setting perfectly through the pipes. And so out in the middle of nowhere, there is still art. And maybe as that thing plays, and I'll flip it off, you could give us just a couple of thoughts on where you think the case is and what is next.
Yeah. So we do have, the preliminary finally scheduled in May. With the time-lapse video, with the cell phone data, all that evidence that's been released, when Brenner shot Dylan that morning, and we know he shot him, okay? We don't have his body, but we know. He was always packing. The evidence tells us he shot Dylan. Was it premeditated? Was it this? Was it that? Well, if you actually read into the case and all the documentation I put online, everything Brenner ever did was a snap moment. All of his charges, all of the attempted murder, the aggravated assaults, all of that was a snap moment. And that morning, he had a snap moment on our son. And he shouldn't have been there. Box Elder should have had him arrested a year earlier. He should not have been there to do that to my son. And that's another downfall. And I argue with them still consistently about it. They say they didn't know where he was. Well, the victim told him where he was. So, there's been a lot of speculation and a lot of crazy theories that have been wanted to be put into this case. But the fact of the matter is Brenner snapped that morning. He was mad at Dylan because he opened the gate and brought the shed in. And that's what it boils down to. That fast and that quick over something that stupid.
Well, yeah. When do you expect the prelim to happen?
So it's May 14th, 15th, and 16th. Finally. And the whole holdup has been, and honestly, it's been the judge. I will tell you what, the prosecuting attorney in Box Elder, He has Dylan's back. He has been amazing. He's nothing like the sheriff's office. He has been truly amazing, and I tell him that all the time. He's responsive. He answers my emails. He helps walk me through things. When I kind of start getting agitated again, he's amazing. The whole thing with it taking so long is no way, like, can Brenner have two attorneys? Does he get one? And then he doesn't get along with one, and then you got to hire another one. I mean, it's just been a mess. And it's the judge that's let this happen. From the first hearing we had last April.
Yeah, this is one that obviously is close to home, and I will plan on seeing you there. Maybe we can chat a little bit during the preliminary hearing and talk a little more. Well, I hope you can see from watching this that searching the area and finding a body would be harder than finding a microscopic needle in a really big haystack. But you know what? I've got a feeling that things are about to change in the Dylan Rounds case. I don't know why, but I've got this hunch based on what I've been seeing and hearing. So I hope that you'll stay tuned, and I'm going to let you know if something big breaks. Again, I may not be the first to know about it, but I really got a sense that something's coming, and there's going to be a big change in this case. I hope it's that Dylan's body is recovered as the weather gets better and they're able to put this murder case together. So please, folks, let me know your thoughts on this case, and please send a shout out to Dylan Rounds' parents. They are rock stars. And while you're at it, send a shout out to the prosecutor and even the deputies in Box Elder County that have been working this murder case. They all can use your help, your prayers, and your best wishes. You know, I think about the word prayers, and who knows, maybe James Brenner will actually humble himself, or at least be compelled to be humble, and that he might share the secrets of where Dylan Rounds' body is. But right now, he's keeping it hidden inside of those closed lips. Hey, make sure you're watching for Candice on Dr. Phil in the next couple of weeks. And just to tease you a little bit further on that particular video, I'm going to show you a little clip that I sent over to the doc as he prepares for his show. Hi, Dr. Phil, and thanks for the chance to explain some of the geography surrounding the area in which Dylan Rounds was farming and the last known location, probably the location where he was murdered and the location where his body was disposed of. Now, if you were to look at this map, we can see that this is all happening up in the northwest corner of the state of Utah. This is an extremely remote desert area in the state. Now, there are people that live out in this area. There are some people that are homesteading and they're living off-grid, and others who are connected, but it really is a rather remote area. To travel there from Salt Lake City takes about 3.5 hours, so it is a trip to get out there. But once you get out into that countryside, it's pretty tough driving unless you have a four-wheel vehicle or a pickup truck at least. Now, in order to understand the size of the Great Salt Lake, I think it's kind of important to point out that the Great Salt Lake is 950 square miles in diameter. In fact, if we were to look at that in acres, it's more than 1 million acres of land that is covered by the Great Salt Lake. Again, to drive there takes about 3.5 hours. Now, Dylan's farm was located just south of the railroad tracks that cut across through that area. We can see those on the map here. And Dylan's place is located just to the east of the location where James Brenner was squatting. So it gives us a little idea of the geography. But the thing that becomes so challenging in this kind of a case is not only is this vast and remote, it's really difficult to be able to see across the terrain because there are so many little cuts and grooves, creek beds, and other things, including mines. And what I've done here on the map is I've just pointed out how many existing workable mines are out there right now, not to mention the hundreds, if not thousands, of other small mines that have been dug or drilled, places in which this young man's body could be disposed of. I hope that provides a little more insight into the area and the kind of challenge that Candice and her family are facing, not to mention law enforcement, in the search for Dylan Rounds. So remember that you can find Profiling Evil on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and here on YouTube. And thanks so much for your support of us here on YouTube. Please, folks, hit that like and subscribe button. And please share us with your friends. Give us thumbs up because that pushes the algorithm and gets more attention on the videos that we're putting out. And if you like audio podcasts, make sure you're checking out Profiling Evil Podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to sign up for the digital newsletter, The BOLO. BOLO stands for Be on the Lookout, and you've got to sign up in order to get it. Only those who have signed up are going to get the BOLO, so please go to profilingevil.com and sign up. Hey, thanks again, folks. We'll see you soon at the next crime scene.